Good morning, everybody. Today's special guest is Jim Haws, Cold War Navy SEAL. He's written a book, which is available in book form and also audio book. Thank you, Jim, for taking some time out of your day to talk to me.
Pleasure to be here. I'm always interested in talking to someone who likes ancient history.
So one part of SOG history that's not often talked about is the involvement of Navy SEALs. So you are a Navy SEAL, and you were in SEAL Team 1? Two. And so that's the other thing, is because a lot of people say that it was only SEAL Team 1. So could you tell me a little bit about how you wound up to be attached to NAD, which was SOG's naval division?
After McNamara's visit, in which he promised us that would all be over by 65, he told us he saw the CIA's operation into the North Vietnam, and he decided that the Department of Defense should take that over and expand it in size and intensity. So 5 people went out, 5 Navy officers went out to stand up the Naval Advisory Detachment. There were 2 SEALs, me and a guy named Ken Wolf, who was CO of UDT 21. So I was the first SEAL Team 2 officer to go PCS from SEAL Team 2 to Vietnam. Other than that, Vietnam had been serviced by SEAL Team 1, temporary detachments going out and back. The other 3 officers, one was a commanding officer, because in those days, the Navy wouldn't dare let a Navy SEAL be in charge of anything.
Wow.
Because in those days, we were the unwanted orphans of the Navy, basically. And that all, of course, started changing soon after we got the chance to show what we could do in Vietnam. But in those days, and so they had a destroyer driver to come out and be the commanding officer of the most sensitive clandestine operation in Vietnam at the time. And then we had an administrative guy, and we had a CEC, an engineering officer. And we were the 5 that came out to stand up NAD. One of the reasons people don't hear anything about the Navy part of SOG is because it was an Army command. And the first commander of SOG was a colonel named Clyde Russell, who came from 10th Mountain Division. He took over he relieved the CIA guy. CIA was happy to turn it over to DOD because CIA understood that it needed to be kept small, and DOD didn't understand the definition of small. So we arrived in April of 1964, got briefings from Clyde Russell and others, and proceeded to Da Nang, where we integrated with the agency and quickly took over on behalf of DOD.
So your role there was as a training role, right? To train the
my role was training officer and assistant operations officer. We had a Marine major who was our operations officer named Jim Munson, who's an outstanding guy.
And so Marine Force, recon were also there, right?
There was 1 officer and 2 enlisted.
Right.
They were helpful, but they were not really an integral part of the operation. Of course, Munson was, because he was the operations officer. It was like someone as an afterthought said, well, we should have some Marines, and that's the way it happened. No aspersions, because most of them are outstanding guys, but that's just the role that they just didn't have a big role.
And did you ever go out onto the nasty class boats or the swift boats?
Well, all the time. I was a training officer, so I'm in charge of all the training that took place on both the teams that were along China Beach and the boats. And when I first got there were no nasties. There were only 3 swifts. 3 swifts brought in by the CIA because the Navy, and this is no exaggeration, the Navy at the time had no small boats. So they quickly made up for it, and they really made up for it when they bought the nasties, which were the best boats in the world. But at the time we started this thing up, there were 3 SWIFTs, and that was it. And the agency had been using the SWIFTs and junks, which they modified, camouflage, and used for the operations into the north.
Now, the Swift boats were more used for up into the river system, right?
Not much. No, they had been used to go north, just not very far north. They were limited. They were great boats, but they were limited, and that's all there was. So,
yeah, I don't know much about the junks. I know quite a bit about the nasty class boats. I know one man who was a radio operator on a boat. And there's very few of those guys to talk to. And I guess he says that they didn't go past the parallel, well, on paper, but it did happen, but not very far, right?
We were not supposed to go north of the 17th.
Right.
As far as I know, I'm the only guy who did, and that was on a Swift, not on a nasty, and only twice in the whole year between April 64 and April 65. There's a lot of rumors going around that people did it, but if they did, it was absolutely unauthorized. And they would have been risking getting a lot of trouble if they had done it. So I'm very skeptical of anybody who says, yeah, I went up north on a nasty.
Right. Now, South, Vietnamese Navy SEALs, they were being dropped off, and they were going north, though, right?
Well, don't confuse what we were doing with the activity that was going on further south. I think that was called LDNN or something.
Okay.
All right, that had nothing to do with us. We had our own teams along China Beach. I think it was about 6 teams a mile apart along China Beach, south of Monkey Mountain and north of Marble Mountain. And they were Nungs and Vietnamese that had been recruited to be trained as commandos for our operations into the north. They were not quote Vietnam SEALs, unquote.
Oh, okay.
Those were the guys further south. And I'm trying to remember the Navy SEALs that did some training of those guys. I'd have to do some research.
Yeah.
If you look up LDNN, I think that's what they were called.
Yeah, and
they had nothing to do with us.
Okay, and that's an area I know that can get quite gray as far as trying to figure out, unless that we talk to someone like you that says no, that didn't happen. It's kind of a when you're reading, can be very easy to get confused, or as a non-SEAL.
The reason I wrote my book 25 years before it was published, and I waited to publish it till everything was declassified, because I'm kind of old school with respect to the way you're supposed to treat what you agree to keep quiet. And so this is not a recollection at this age. It's a recollection not all that long after it actually happened. So
yeah, that's good, because a lot of people, I'm 53, so basically, when you were over there, that was probably 53 years ago plus.
Yeah.
And my memory from when I was 20, excuse me, it would be hard for me to recollect, finer details. So,
right.
Hats off to you. That's a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's very vivid, and it prepared me for the Congo. So as those memories are quite indelibly implanted.
And so what made you you wanting to write your book? Did you want to make sure that the world knew, like, in factual context, what happened, so people who are wanting to learn about it? So it was, what made you write it?
Well, I wrote the book basically because I wanted to talk about the Congo, because I wanted to pay tribute to the Cubans that were never honored for what they did for us in the Congo, and they were sensational. Their behavior, their deportment, their professionalism and loyalty, their bravery. And in order to set the stage for what we did in the Congo, I had to talk about what I'd done in Vietnam and what I'd learned that prepared me to go to the Congo. And then one of the things that qualified me for was the SWIFT experience. And there were only two, at the end of the first year, there were only 2 US Navy officers who had SWIFT experience. I was one of the 2. So
Wow.
that's what that's about. Mhm.
So we'll get into the very interesting Cuban part of your history. But I want to ask you, when you were on the Swift boats or on the Nasty class, I know excuse me, my voice is going, on the Nasty class, were the captains US or were they
No, the captains were the Vietnamese captains.
the Vietnamese? So by the time
And
that
they were some terrific guys. We only found out a lot of years later. I don't know whether it was via you or somebody else on one of the things, that of course one of them was actually a Viet Cong. So there were all we thought were confidential and so forth. And our raids in the north, much of it was like everywhere else, riddled with the North Vietnamese spies. But by and large, the Vietnamese captains of those Swifts were terrific.
And I was told that those captains, that they could speak French, they could speak English,
Yeah.
and their native tongue, right? So
Yeah, oh yeah, they were smart, they were educated, they were brave. The ones, that's my recollection of over that first year.
now, when
So,
I've talked to some SOG guys, they've said that the indigenous people, the Nungs and the Yards and those all the different ethnic groups didn't get along. So if you have a Vietnamese captain on the boat and you have Nung, LLDN guys, was there any issues between racism between the two of them?
not on the actual operations. They didn't mix in the training. We owned separate camps.
Right.
And the Vietnamese prejudice against the Nungs was terrible, which is one of the reasons the Nungs like working for the Americans so much.
Right.
But when it came, we never had an incident on the boats as they were going north that was deleterious to the outcome of the operation.
So work was work, but off
Yeah.
time was different entirely.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever go to it was called the White Elephant, wasn't it?
That's where we had that was our headquarters, Bucktown. Yeah, the White Elephant. Yeah.
So
That was the CIA headquarters that we took over. Mhm.
and so that you would go there, and is that where that you would get your orders, or why would you go there? What would be the
Because I was part of the headquarters group.
okay,
And the training teams were over in MACV along China Beach.
right,
And I would, commute back and forth during the day. But my office was because the guys who were MACV, the training teams were all out on 6 months detachments.
right.
Well, I was there as PCS, permanent change of station, and that was my office. It's also where we had the vault where we kept all the secret information that we used to try to figure out what operations to conduct.
And did you ever have a say in that? I mean, could you
Yeah.
tell them, I don't think that's a good idea?
Yeah, remember, the reason I got to do all this is just as a mere lieutenant JG, is because the orders came down from McNamara's office, not the Navy. Navy didn't know hardly anything about this.
Wow.
The first at least 6 to 8 months. Okay, so I got selected based on qualifications, not on rank. I actually got relieved by 2 guys, just to give you how it changes. I got relieved by two people, both senior to me in rank. Same job. Okay, so I got this job based on qualifications. There, there were 10 SEALs and officers on each coast. So when they went out and asked for qualifications, it was not a large pool to select from. And the XO of SEAL Team 2 liked me and called me and said, "Hey, you want to do this?" So.
And when you got to Vietnam, was that your first experience with combat?
Yes.
And was your can you tell us a little bit about that first experience? I mean, was that a pivotal part, or just being shot at in a boat, or was there a major incident?
The first real incident that it made an impression was we used to take the teams down below Marble Mountain to get them some sort of live fire experience before going north. And so then the first time I went down with them, I put myself in a position in which after I had done it, I felt so stupid that as I said, it made a lasting impression. Yeah. So I appreciated luck.
You know, I mean, what a lot of the public don't realize is that, you know, on that mountain, Marble Mountain, there were bad guys in the mountain, you
I
know?
learned to rappel on that mountain. We climbed all over it.
Yeah,
That's why I learned to rappel.
yeah. Wow.
And we heard about the caves and so forth, but
Yeah.
we never got curious enough to go in.
Yeah,
And I think that was at a time where they were moving north from south from below Mar Mountain, Hoi An, in that area. The Viet Cong were slowly inching up on us, but I don't think it was as populated with Viet Cong at that year
right,
as it became
right.
during the time that Army SOG took over our camp, which
Right.
was several years later. And that came out from talking to Tilt, to Myers.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
Now this is a strange question to ask you, but at China Beach, did you ever surf?
oh yeah, China Beach was wonderful. And
Yeah,
it was ours. I mean, nobody else was allowed on it. So
yeah,
we had 6 or 8 miles of beach that was there for training purposes. And the surf wasn't great, but occasionally it was pretty good. In the winter season, the surf got up, made being in the swift boats a little less comfortable because the center of gravity in the swift boats was a bit high, so they would roll a lot in the South China Sea. But yeah,
there,
the China Beach was wonderful.
there is well, there are two unnamed I know who they are, but I'm not going to name them. SOG guys who went down to from FOB4 down to China Beach, stole two surfboards, and then paddled back, and then they had their surfboards there. It's kind of and one of them was kind of a weightlifter bodybuilder guy who was all gung ho to do it, but he soon found out that yes, he had strength, but the endurance wasn't there. And so paddling back all that way, he told the other guy, he said, "Oh man, I'm not doing that again." So that was,
Yeah, after my time. So all of that FOB 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it was.
yeah. So take a big step back. What was training like? I mean, everybody has heard of Hell Week as far as being a SEAL. So when you were training to be a SEAL, uh, the dropout rate was still huge, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah. Same thing. It hadn't changed 10% or the whole during the last 50 years.
So they've always had the bell there. If you want to,
Well, you just gave the instructor your red helmet. I was an instructor for a year
wow,
before I went to Vietnam. That's where I was when the XO of SEAL Team 2 called me. Okay, I was assistant training officer at Buds. What today you call Buds?
right. So during the buds, where would most men trying out fail? What was the biggest obstacle mentally or physically?
Biggest obstacle is mental. I can give you several stories and examples of that, where guys had all the physical tools. And when I first checked in to be the assistant training officer, I went to the training unit after graduation. I went through graduation, and it's in the book. It has to do with eyes and waivers for my eyes and all that kind of stuff. But I went from graduation straight to the training unit. So the guys who had been busting my butt I was their boss.
Wow.
Fantastic. They treated me like I was a 20-year Medal of Honor winner, awardee. I mean, they were professional as hell. But right after I got there, I had to go down to Key West to screen some guys who were volunteering for next training class. So I came back from that, and I said, I remember that the guy's going to be honor man. And of course, all the enlisted instructors laughed, said, yeah, Mr. Hawes, blah, blah, blah. Well, the damn guy was the first guy to quit. First guy to quit.
Wow.
Not second, but the first. So you can imagine the flack I took from the instructors. Well, the next class, we had an officer who was terrific. He was fancy Ivy League school, smart guy, fluent in 2 languages, excellent physical guy. And I used to work on the officers. I didn't mess too much with the enlisted guys, but I made the officers as uncomfortable. We were we were out there the first day of the whole week, and it was an afternoon. We were on the beach, and I eased up to this guy and said, "Mr. Smith, how you doing?" He said, "Oh, fine, instructor." I said, "Mr. Smith, these instructors think you're going to be honor man. But I think you're going to quit. And when you do, just give me your helmet." So next Tuesday, then I eased off. Tuesday, same thing. "How you doing, Mr. Smith?" "Fine, instructor." "I don't know, Mr. Smith, you look like you're beginning to flag a little bit. You see all those ships out there in the bay exercising? All the smart officers are sitting in the wardroom drinking coffee, and here you are with your education, getting your butt busted. Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, instructor." "Okay, well, when you change your mind, let me know." He's off. Wednesday, same thing. "How you doing?" "Fine." "Well, I don't know, Mr. Smith. I think you're having doubts. I think you're allowing your mind to impose your limits." "No, instructor." "Okay, well, let me know. Thursday afternoon, are you ready to quit, Mr. Smith?" "Yes, instructor." One day before it was over.
One day.
One day before Hell Week was over. So that is, to me, the perfect example of the mental determination that it takes, mental strength that it takes, because he had imposed his physical limitations on himself with his mind. Instead of get his mind out of gear and his butt in gear, he allowed his mind to rationalize quitting. So when you ask, what's the difference? The difference is all mental. You see guys that look like coat racks who make it through training. You see guys who look like Man Mountain Dean who can't make it.
Right.
You see football players who quit quick because there are no timeouts, there are no quarters.
Right.
Enough times. A lot of the water polo guys and a lot of the wrestlers do well. Interesting.
Wow. And so so this is the real education for me. I have never spoken to a Navy guy. Well, 2, I guess, but not about this question. Can anybody in the Navy try out to do buds?
As far as I know, I just put in an application.
Wow.
And today they do all kinds of pre-work and pre-screening and so forth in an effort to both get more guys through, but keep the standards and try to get them prepared. But at the end of the day, no matter how much they prepare when Hell Week starts, if the mental strength isn't there, they bail.
Wow. So when you got the opportunity to go and be a part of NAD, that was purely a volunteer, I would assume, right?
I had to extend my time in the Navy to go. I was volunteer extension when I went to Vietnam.
Wow. It says here on the question that you did on another interview, what experience and training prepared for you for this mission and SEAL training? I think we've already covered that one, actually. How about so at the end of your tour with SOG, did you have the opportunity to sign up again? Could you have done another tour?
Oh yeah, I had volunteered to bring the first detachment back to the Delta during that last 6 months in Da Nang, and I had made a request of UPERS. I said, let me leave a month early so I can go through a full training cycle with my component, because it's a totally different kind of operations, and I'd like to maximize the preparation. And the guy said, "Oh, geez, wish we could do that, but we can't, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Okay, well, I'll get a half a training cycle." So my relief shows up I told you I was relieved by two guys. One of them was a guy I'd gone through training with. And I said, geez, Kurt, wish you'd gotten here sooner. He said, I've been standing by waiting to come.
Wow.
And I thought, well, you SOBs in this cavalier, nonchalant attitude on something as important as this, to hell with you. I picked up the phone in Da Nang and got through the Saigon switchboard, the Honolulu switchboard, directly to the detailer in Washington. And I said, my name's Hawes, my file number is 6959, 59. And I'm on a voluntary extension. I want out of this Navy right now. Well, so I got a set of orders, and that was it. Goodbye.
Wow.
So I went to because my year was up anyway.
Okay.
And so I went and mustered out in San Francisco. And by this time I'd cooled off, and I thought, what the hell did you just do? You love what you're doing. So I thought, well, I'll just go back and sign on, and go out next detachment or another detachment. So I made my trip across country, and stopped by to see my folks a while, and went back to Little Creek and messed around there for a little bit, get ready to sign up, and I got the call for the Congo from the agency. So that was that was the other thing that I was thinking about doing was to go back and join the startup of the Phoenix program in Vietnam, because a fabulous character named Tucker Gugelman was one of the startup guys for that. He had been my mentor in Da Nang when we took over their operations. So that's how that.
Yeah, so this is another aspect of the SEALs' involvement with Vietnam is the PRU and the Phoenix program. I've definitely encountered some polite warnings from various people about digging into the Phoenix program, so I didn't anymore. You know, it's kind of, I haven't met too many guys who really feel comfortable even talking about their involvement with the Phoenix program. But quite a few SEALs were involved with that, right?
Yeah, I know a number of them that were. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't participate in that, so I don't understand their reluctance. Their reluctance, other than that's just the way we operate at the time. It's only in recent years that SEALs have become so public.
Right. So when you were doing these training missions, or being the training officers, you would go on combat operations with them. I would assume.
Well, we would go on preparation missions. The missions to the north. All our real missions were in the north. We do preparation stuff in the south, like I told you, down below Marble Mountain, trying to get some sort of live fire experience, so to speak.
Right.
But going north, no, the teams went north. That was it. We were not allowed to go north.
So can you tell us then the interesting, segue between you going from being a Navy SEAL to then the CIA, and how that and why you were there? That you and I have talked about that offline, and it's an incredible story that, I mean, thank you for doing your book, because most people don't know about this at all.
Well, they don't know about it because it was number one, it was a clandestine mission. Number two, it was a success. And number three, we had our own Cubans involved, and the State Department's always been goosey about that. But I went because I got selected because I was one of two officers that had the SWIFT experience. The other officer was actually going into the agency's career training program, and his wife was about to have a baby. And so he called me and said, geez, Jim, they want me to go, and I don't want to say no, but I'm getting ready to start the CT program. My fiber's about to pop. You interested? So I said, you mean I'll get paid? So that was it. And the head of the maritime branch at the CIA was a fabulous former SEAL named Bill Hamilton. And so he had any trouble checking me out, and I went up and met with him, and made sure I knew what I was talking about the Swifts, and I took a orientation visit a little bit to Marana Air Park in Arizona to get a little bit of a knowledge who I was working for and so forth. And so I was on my way, and then I was on my way to the Congo. I got met in the Congo by the head of the paramilitary operations in Congo. Was a sensational guy, absolutely superstar. And he met me and said, "Well, you know, I can't tell you. All I can tell you is I'll support you any way I can, but you're going to be 2,000 miles across the jungle, and you're on your own, and the only communications is when you send a message on a supply plane. And while you're on your own, it's up to you to figure it out." So that was it.
And so so sorry to interrupt you, but what for the public, what was going on in deepest parts of Congo that the CIA was wanting to have somebody or people there?
Well, there was a huge rebellion going on. They were called the Simbas, and they were, if you went back and looked at the period 64 and 65, you'd see the atrocities that were being committed against missionaries, which of course didn't address the even greater atrocities that were being committed against the Congolese population. And finally, it got so bad that the suits in Washington said, "Oh, geez, we better do something about this." And all the supplies to support these guys are coming across Lake Tanganyika from the port of Kigoma in Tanzania now. And we need to do something to interdict them. So we need an interdiction program. And okay, who do we get to do that? Well, here I am. So went over and set up an interdiction program, which meant we commandeered a number of lake vessels, armed them with captured Russian weapons. And then this guy Hamilton and his partner Tom Kleins, who was an incredible guy, we need to put some speed and lethality on the lake, a greater lethality on the lake. And so they got two Swifts, cut the bows, cut them longitudinally, cut the superstructure, put them as globe masters, flew them in the middle of the Congo, right next to an air gauge railroad, which took us to the port, which went to the port of Albertville, which is where my headquarters was. We brought the Cajuns out from Louisiana, who had built the Swifts in the first place, brought them in black, and they stitched those boats together. We put them on the lake. The Cajuns left. They came in black, went out black. Wow. And then came in this 15 Cubans who were very experienced in anti-Castro operations and totally loyal to Kleins, Hamilton's deputy. Kleins turned them over to me and said, and so they were my training cadre. So then I recruited a Navy from the 5th Commando, which was, you remember the name Mad Mike Hoare, who was the most notorious mercenary of the 20th century. He was commanding officer of 5 Commando. So I recruited some guys away from him. And that became the nucleus of the Navy, and the Cubans started out with the interdiction, and they were trained, and then they trained the 5 Commando. So that was, in a nutshell, that's what happened. I mean, a lot more to say, of course, but
now as a real twist, again, you had told me this off air that there was a very famous, terrorist that you narrowly missed, right?
Oh yeah, well, as it turns out, nobody knew where Che Guevara was. They just knew he was out and about, and wherever he was, there was going to be trouble. And it turns out he was in the Congo, and he was the guy who was trying to lead these Simbas. And we discovered and confirmed him there. And then if you read his own, I mean, nobody has to believe a word I say. All I have to do is look at Che's own diary with the African Dream. It starts out, "This is the story of a failure." And in there, he talks, especially in the epilogue, that we basically prevent him from getting his weapons, his medicines, his foods. And and then he totally misassessed the Simbas as well. Che Guevara was not what the T-shirts would lead you to believe. He was a murderer. He was a psychopath. He was a romantic revolutionary. He couldn't build anything. He just loved to kill. He couldn't build anything when he was when he was minister of industry at Cuba. He didn't do a thing before all of this happened. He just wanted to go out and foment a revolution. And he totally misassessed the Simbas and the Congolese that he was going to be dealing with, because all they were interested in rape, pillage, and plunder. They had no ideological and bones in their body. So he came out and he with his team, and we slowly basically starved them out. And then when he tried to make his escape across Lake Tanganyika back to Goma, we just missed him. We should have killed him on November 25th, 1965. But the good news is he got away and went to Bolivia.
So if you would have seen him, you had clearance to do whatever was necessary to, reduce the flow of arms, right? It would have been a bonus if you would have got him, but you wouldn't have. You were, as you told us, that you were your own boss. I mean, you had to make the choices. You couldn't really call and say, "Hey, can I do this?"
Oh, exactly right. No, that was my judgment. Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
you were saying,
When they did, one thing I didn't was this. When you think about what it takes assessing somebody to go out into that kind of a situation, you got to be pretty careful who you choose. I mean, I was there. I was having weapons. I had money. I could have joined the mercenaries, been a part of the liberation of all the banks. Plus the gold mines, gold mines up in northeastern government. I could have got mighty rich. And if so, and in that kind of environment, it's easy to get swayed because there's nothing else around. You're all. When I was finished with Hamilton back during that assessment period, he took me to see the head of a special operations division, which was a Marine colonel named Cheevers, hell of a guy, and he had to sit there and in 45 minutes decide whether this 25-year-old kid was suitable for this kind of a mission. This is a pretty gutsy call on his part.
And so with SOG, that you would have to sign, or did you sign an NDA? I would assume that you did.
Oh, sure. That's why I didn't write this thing for all this time. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't know that I don't know that I had to wait this long.
Of course.
I just wanted to do it where there was absolutely no question.
Right. And so with your covert work that you were doing in the Congo, did you also have to sign a waiver as well, like an NDA with the CIA?
I'm sorry, I thought that's what you were referring to in your previous question.
Okay, yeah, no, just like the work.
Sign a secrecy agreement or whatever. Today, I guess you call it an NDA or whatever, but of course I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like I know that a lot of the military SOG files are now on the public forums and stuff, but the CIA is always still probably redacted about what they were doing, right? Even now, they're still very careful. And you were saying, I know that on the Jocko podcast that you can speak Spanish, right? Fluent Spanish?
Oh, I cannot speak Spanish.
Oh, you can't speak Spanish. What other languages can you speak?
Indonesian.
Indonesian. Wow. I must have been playing multiple.
But I was fluent. Yeah.
And so what happened with your life after your I don't want to say tour, but after your time with the agency?
Well, I went to Harvard Business School and went to Asia and spent the next 35 years doing sort of entrepreneurial stuff in Asia. We co-founded the first venture capital fund in Hong Kong for Southeast Asia. It was a good time to be there. There were before the American lawyers and most of the American banks. So it was a great time to be there. everything depended upon your own behavior and your reputation. I loved it. So,
Have you?
I've thrown a into a meat house.
Yeah. And since have you been back to Vietnam since the war?
Yeah, sure. I was co-chairman of the company that built the first office building in Hanoi after the war.
Wow.
And that sounds like I did more than I did, but yes, I was very much I was involved in negotiating and so forth. Another guy who should get all the credit. But yes, I was involved, and this was early days. This is the very early days, because the guys who came in second, who tried to be second, all lost, because we were in there when it was really just beginning to change, but not enough of the old guys had died off. The young guys were eager to do what they've subsequently done, but the old guys were still part of the old mentality. So we got in just in time, got the building built. It's called the International Building. It's right there next to that really nice old hotel that near the Opera House, and he sold it to the Singapore government. So, and got it done, got out. Then a few years later, after enough of the old guys, then the great recovery commenced, and of course it's been remarkable. But yeah, no, I like the Vietnamese. I'd take any excuse to go to Vietnam.
Well, that's cool. I know that my mom has actually been there, and my stepfather have been there twice, and they were there only a couple of months ago, and they were at Monkey Mountain. So it was kind of
We used
ironic.
to do a lot of patrolling on Monkey Mountain because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So there was a light. There was a light on top of Monkey Mountain. Because when I came back from one of the few times I went up north on the 17th, was on a Swift after the second bombing raid, and some genius on McGeorge Bundy's staff said, "Oh, if we're going to do bombing, we better have search and rescue." And of course, I don't think he ever looked at a globe, much less the shoreline or whatever. So this is in the order out, and so we need search and rescue. And this destroyer driver didn't know anything about small boats or clandestine operations or anything else, said, "Well, you better go up there and do search and rescue." So I get in this Swift and I head into North Vietnam. I think it was Dong Ha, which was where it was. And we're in a 50-foot boat. The weather's terrible. We lose our radio. We lose our radar. If any one of those pilots that had to bail out, he had to land on our fantail. Otherwise, we never would have found him. So we're there all night long, totally blind, wondering, Jesus, I hope none of these bad guys come out here. And I had some Vietnamese and a few other SEALs with me. And I said, "Well, this is crazy. We better get out of here before the sun comes up." So we started heading south again. It was just dead reckoning because I didn't have my radar, wasn't working, radio wasn't working, whatever. And that light on top of Monkey Mountain was the thing that kept us ended up somewhere between there and the Philippines.
Wow.
That was the best thing I ever did. All the time, all my experience, nobody knew a thing about
Wow.
it.
Did you ever go to Hong Tre Island? Hong Tre Island was where they would take
the guys captured, of course. Yeah,
yeah.
I've got pictures of me I got pictures of me on there, along with this Marine warrant officer I told you about, who was
Right.
in that. Yeah, oh yeah, that was the best deal that any North Vietnamese could ever have, was to get captured by us and brought down, bring him to that island. He eats good. He got nobody bugging him like his own commissars. He tells us what little bit he knows, because they're just basically fishermen.
Right.
Tells us what little bit he knows, and then we take him back. Not only take the risk of going and getting him and bring him down, we take him back, and we give him money and electronics and so forth, all of which I'm sure was confiscated by his political commissars when he got back. But we used to laugh about, Jesus, next time we go up, they're going to be standing on the shore waving at us.
I had heard that a lot of the fishermen that were caught and taken to the island, that they were fattened up and they would go back, and all the other guys there, and people, they were all skinny, and there's this guy, like 20 pounds heavier. They knew that something good had happened, right?
Exactly. No, it was a hell of a deal for them.
And they, like you were saying, they were given like a radio, but it was actually only tuned in to some black ops stuff, right? That was anti-communist.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
it all got confiscated right after they got back. But everybody could pretend we were really doing something.
Wow. So I'm sure that after the war, then when like even from 1975 and up, that you must have met probably hundreds of guys that have told you that they were in the SEAL team. I mean, there's so many fakers out there, stolen valor. Everyone's a green beret, black ops. I can't talk about that. That's classified. So, do you have a story about a run-in with a couple of these idiots?
Oh, no, because I don't have anything to do with them. I don't, no, I don't. Of course, some of my teammates have, and they've made it a career of exposing those guys.
Right.
That's the other thing they think, I can find out with a phone call who's real and who isn't, because our guys take that really seriously. But no, I haven't had much to do with it. I've run into it, and I basically say, you're full, you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now so we've got another 10 minutes roughly, and then we'll be at an hour. So I'm just going to ask you a few more questions. And this is one that I told you that I knew a man who was on a Swift boat and a nasty class, and he said that the Swift boats really were not armed. They were armed, but weren't as well armed as the nasty class boats, right?
Oh, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying that he had done one mission on a Swift boat up the river, and yeah, he said that he wasn't as happy.
I
Did you?
can't remember. I think the in Vietnam, I think we had the Swiss. We had two 50 calibers athwart ships and a recoilless rifle fired off the shoulder of a tube off the superstructure. In the Congo, I had 50s athwart ships of 50 aft and a recoilless rifle on the
So in the Congo, how would you buy like machine guns and stuff? Who do you call? Or I mean, is stuff being?
There's plenty of stuff. We just captured weaponry.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
when the Swifts started, we had 50s that we brought with the Swifts. But for the Ermines, the mothership, we also had what you would call basically Boston whalers. We had 5 or 6 of those that were directed by a line of sight by a mothership that had radar.
Okay.
And that had captured 12.7 Russian machine guns, and then we had a 75 millimeter recoilless on the fantail, which was formidable for that area. And then the little boats had a 30 caliber machine gun and a shoulder fired 3.5-inch rocket launcher. That's why that was well armed.
And you had told me that you really enjoyed working with those Cubans, and one of the reasons that you wanted to write your book was to acknowledge their bravery and their actions, something that seems to be forgotten.
Not one problem, not one with those guys that whole time. They were so professional. They were just terrific. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And those gentlemen, I'm sure that they would have been given a deal that they would be able to live out the rest of their life in the U.S. They wouldn't, they would be.
I don't know. I don't know the details of what their deal was. They all had, and they were all recruited here from that community. And when you get a chance, you should go to the 2506 Museum in Miami, which was done for the Bay of Pigs, but also all the Congo Cubans are in that, and it's very well done. And an incredible guy named Felix Rodriguez is the head of the museum, and should get there before he dies.
Yeah, I mean he's the man he was the CIA agent that was actually there when Shea was caught.
Yeah, exactly. When Shea got what he deserved. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
I know that there's some kind of nobody really knows who shot Che, right? I mean, they were saying that the locals, that they gave that to the locals, but
Bolivia guy did. Felix didn't.
Felix didn't.
We're certain of that.
So for people that want
Felix
to,
would have had him live. Felix would have rather had him alive and wring out all the information he could wring out of it.
right,
Just killing him that might have been a pleasure, given that that's what he deserved.
right.
Thing to do is what Felix would have done. That was wring him dry for information.
And now also the little piece of, history for the younger generation that are listening, he and, Castro were best of buddies. And then the CIA sent Shay's hands to Castro, correct?
Correct. That's what I understand. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that would be quite the box to open.
Yes. Mhm.
So for those people that want to buy your book or the audio book, where would you like them to go?
It's on Amazon.
Amazon?
Cold War Navy SEAL, My Story, Che Guevara, War in the Congo, and the Communist Threat in Africa by James M. Haws and Marianne Koenig. And it's
And
on.
and also, if people want to listen to a much longer interview with you, that you did the Jocko podcast as well, where I'm sure that was nice to talk to a younger SEAL, like you're talking to the same language, right?
That's podcast number 382, in case anybody's interested.
Yeah, and how why I was listening to that and to another one of Jocko's was that um, uh, Robert Wagner, who was a Navy SEAL attached to NAD, his son told me to watch a few of those where his father is talked about and his involvement with the PRU and all that. It's quite interesting.
Well, if this is the Bob Wagner, this is the Bob Wagner that I knew in Vietnam at the time I was there, and he was over on EK. He was a hell of a guy. He was really smart. And I thought he had been killed long before Jocko could have interviewed him. So Jocko might have interviewed his son.
No. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. So there is a younger Navy SEAL who wrote a book about the SEALs all throughout your histories, and in part of that, Benjamin, I think his name is, and he mentions about Wagner. And sorry if I. Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I will send you the time point of when he does discuss, because
By the way, if the audience only got time to read one book, don't read mine. Read Milligan's. It's a terrific book. Okay, mine's just about a couple of adventures. This is a real story of the SEALs.
yeah, I have reached out to him, but he's a very busy guy. I mean, so but so as we wind down these final minutes, is there anything that you would like to tell the public about, perhaps, what they can do to learn more about Navy SEALs? Is there, during the Vietnam period, is there a website that they can go to, or any advice or
Um,
I know that there's one in Florida. There's the Navy SEAL
yeah, go to you should
museum,
at the UDD SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida.
right?
It is extremely well done. And there you can go and you can, if you're really interested, you go there and start getting some directions. Much better than anything I could say.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, we will conclude this interview. Again, thank you for spending the time with me today. You're the first Navy SEAL that I've talked to. And of course, very interesting about the SOG part of it, NAD. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to reach out to a few more of your peer
Yeah.
group who were there. But everyone's getting old, so, and not everybody knows Zoom, right?
Brother, Jesus, guys are dropping like flies. So hurry up.
Yeah. So that's why, even for, 50 minutes, and what my objective here is that people can hear your history in your voice, your words, and of course that your book. There are many veterans who haven't written books, so if I can get them on here, And then that way it's there forever. It'll be there when I'm not around anymore, right? So future generations can watch it.
You're providing a valuable service. Please,
So,
you glad I could participate a little bit.
yeah. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. And thank you very much, sir.
Good. All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.